what is productivity? The rate of biomass production per unit area over a time period by the plant during photosynthesis is called productivity. Productivity means the rate of biomass production per unit area over a period of time is known as the productivity. That means productivity are two types, primary productivity and secondary productivity. Primary productivity क्या होता है? The amount of the biomass or organic matter produced per unit area over a time period in plants during photosynthesis is called primary productivity. Or secondary productivity, the rate of formation of the new organic matter by consumer is called secondary productivity. Okay, so another you have to remember, gross primary productivity क्या होता है, and another is net primary productivity, GPP and NPP. So GPP, first of all, definition I am again telling you the definition. GPP, gross primary productivity, it is the rate of production of the organic matter during the photosynthesis of an ecosystem. It is the rate of production of organic matter during the photosynthesis in an ecosystem is called GPP, gross primary productivity. Or net primary productivity, it is the weight of the organic matter stored by the producers in a unit or per unit area. It is given by the equation NPP, net primary productivity, equal to GR. That means R means respiration losses. Okay. Now factors affecting primary productivity. Plant species, that means environmental factors, sunlight, temperature, and moisture. Sunlight, if sunlight, that means required maximum quantity for the productivity of the plant. If sunlight are not available in certain quantity, then productivity is not possible. Or next, temperature. Temperature is essential for two vital processes like photosynthesis and respiration in the plant. Temperature plays significant role for the productivity in the plants. Next one, moisture, moisture content. That means plant require or rain, particularly moisture means rain or rainfall required for the productivity. So maximum rainfall needs the productivity. Next one, decomposition. What is decomposition? In this chapter, you have to study the decomposition. The process of breaking down the complex organic matter into simple form is known as the decomposition. As we know, after the death of the living organism, particularly the plants and animals, the dead body mix up within the soil by the help of the decomposers or putrefying bacteria. This process is known as the decomposition. And this decomposition is possible. Decomposition is possible by the help of the microorganisms or putrefying bacteria. Photosynthetic, next one, detritus, the raw materials for the decomposition, including dead plant and animals, remain in their fecal matter is called detritus. Okay. Now, steps of decomposition. Already I discussed in your classes, steps involved in the decomposition process. ऑलरेडी मैं बोर्ड पे लिख के आप लोगों को बताया. इसमें फ्रैगमेंटेशन, लीचिंग, कैटाबोलिज्म, ह्यूमिफिकेशन as well as the mineralization. These are the steps of decomposition. Now the factors affecting decomposition. Decomposition में कौन-कौन factor affecting होता है? Chemical composition of the detritus and climatic factor. The decomposition rate is low. If detritus is rich in lignin and chitin, then rate is very slow. Lignin and chitin, these are the two chemical structure. It is difficult to decompose it. So chemical composition of the detritus, as we know, mainly the fungal cell wall is made up of chitin and some other plant body lignin. So lignin and chitin is very much complex substances. It is difficult to decompose it. Next one, climatic factors. Warm and moist environment favors the decomposition. Low temperature inhibit decomposition. तो हम लोग जानते ही हैं, गर्म वेदर होता है तो हॉट वेदर होता है तो that means it favors the decomposition. Now, food chain and food web. These are the two important topic we have to study in this chapter: food chain and food web. Food chain. What is food chain? The series of organisms by means of which a number of food chain, series of organisms, not we have to say, a number of food chain whenever interconnected by different species. This is known as the food chain. A number of food chain whenever interconnected by different species, and it becomes complicated. The complicated food chain is known as food web. Okay. The food chain is series of organisms through which food and nutrients are transferred is known as food chain. And food web means several food chain whenever interconnected by different species, they're interconnected and it becomes complicated. This complicated food chain is known as food web. Okay. So food chain and food web. These are the differences between food chain. Food chain, that means straightforward, a series of organisms through which food and nutrient is transferred is known as the food chain. And food web means several food chain whenever interconnected by different species, it becomes complicated. This complicated food chain is called food web. Okay. Now, so many queries regarding the food chain and food web. As you know, 10% law of energy transfer, Kindman in the year of 1942 introduced 10% law of energy transfer. According to him, only 10% energy to be transferred into the next trophic level, and remaining energy will be released into the atmosphere in the form of the heat. This is known as the community heat. Okay. According to 10% law of energy transfer, that means the number of trophic level in a food chain is limited or not more than 6. It justified. Class में भी मैंने discuss किया था ये चीज. The number of trophic level in a food chain is limited. Number of trophic level in a food chain is limited. That means not more than 6. Justification क्या होगा इसका? That means if number of trophic level, if number of organism in a food chain increases, the amount of energy availability will be decreased as per 10% law of energy. जो फर्स्ट ट्रॉपिक लेवल में होगा, मान लीजिए 1000 जूल है, पहला ट्रॉपिक लेवल में जो ऑर्गेनिज्म है उसको 1000 जूल मिल रहा है. नेक्स्ट ट्रॉपिक लेवल में जो ऑर्गेनिज्म है उसको 100 जूल है, और नेक्स्ट ट्रॉपिक लेवल में 10 जूल है. नेक्स्ट ट्रॉपिक लेवल में जो ऑर्गेनिज्म 1 जूल है, उसके बाद 0.01 जूल. धीरे धीरे अमाउंट ऑफ द एनर्जी कम होता जाएगा. एक समय ऐसा होगा द अमाउंट ऑफ द एनर्जी व्हिच इज नॉट सस्टेनेबल फॉर द living organism. So number of trophic level in a food chain is limited or not more than 6. Okay. Next one. Another is vegetarian gets more calories from their food. Vegetarian gets more calories from their food. Vegetarian gets more calories from their food. Justify. Hello. अब आंसर दो कोई. Vegetarian gets more calories from their food. Justify the statement. Hello. Hello. Vegetarian gets more calories from their food. Vegetarian food chain, that means from plant direct to man. If plant stored 1000 joule of energy, the man will get 100 joule of energy. But in case of the non-veg, plant, then goat, then man. The plant, if 1000 joule energy is stored, then goat will get 100 joule and man will get 10 joule. So vegetarian food chain is a number of trophic level less than the non-vegetarian food chain. As a result of this, vegetarian gets more calories as compared to the non-vegetarian food chain. Okay. So next one, type of food chain. Grazing food chain, as per your syllabus, grazing food chain and detritus food chain. Grazing food chain, first of all grass, then rabbit, then lion. This is grazing food chain. And detritus food chain, food dead leaves, then wood house, then blackbird. This is called detritus food chain. Now trophic level. What do you mean by trophic level? Trophic level means in an ecosystem, the series of organism or number of the organism in the each step, each and every step is known as the trophic level. Okay. Next one, standing crop. What do you mean by standing crop? Standing crop. This question asked several times. Standing crop. What is standing crop? Each trophic level has a certain mass of living material. Each and every trophic level having a certain mass of that means living materials in a particular time is called standing crop. Okay, the standing crop definition is asked several times. You have to remember it. Energy flow. In case of the food chain, energy flow occurs. That is transfer of the energy from one trophic level to another trophic level. Out of the total incident of the solar radiation, 50% of this photosynthetically active radiation. 50% photosynthetically active radiation. Okay. Now, producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers. Primary consumers, producers के बाद ही क्या होता है ना, primary consumers. Number of primary consumers will be large number, and then secondary consumers, that means those organisms consume the primary consumers, these are known as the secondary consumers. Then number will be the limited, and last one, this is the tertiary consumers or top consumers, where the number of organisms very limited. As for example, in a forest, the lion and tiger representing the top consumers or tertiary consumers. Okay, so in this way we can discuss about the primary, tertiary, and if graphically it is when plot on a graph paper, it takes the pyramidal shape. This is known as the ecological pyramid. Ecological pyramid क्या होता है? The number of trophic level, the number of organism representing in the each and every trophic level, if graphically plotted on a graph paper, it shows the pyramidal structure. That's why it is known as ecological pyramid. You have to remember the definition of the ecological pyramid. If the number of the organism in each and every trophic level graphically plotted on a graph paper, it shows pyramidal shape. This is known as the ecological pyramid, where the number of producers, then consumers, then primary consumers, secondary consumer, tertiary consumers, and finally it shows the pyramidal structure. Okay. So who introduced 10% law of energy transfer? Lindemann in the year of 1942 introduced 10% law of energy transfer. According to him, only 10% energy to be transferred into the next trophic level, and the remaining energy will be released in the atmosphere in the form of the heat. This is known as the community heat. So this is 10% law of energy transfer. Now, question arises. Pyramid of biomass in the sea is generally inverted. Justify the statement. The pyramid of biomass in the sea or aquatic body is generally inverted. Inverted pyramid, where it is found? Sea. Why? Reason behind it? Can you say? Anyone? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Why the pyramid of biomass in the sea is generally inverted? ये क्लास में तो मैं बहुत बार डिस्कस किया आप लोगों को. Pyramid of biomass in the sea is generally inverted. Justify. Because the number of producers are less than the consumers. Producers का number ज़्यादा होना चाहिए naturally, then consumers. But सी में क्या होता है? नंबर ऑफ कंज्यूमर्स ज्यादा होता है एज कंपेयर टू द प्रोड्यूसर्स. इस कारण से जो इकोलॉजिकल पिरामिड होता है जनरली ये इन्वर्टेड होता है. याद रहेगा ना? हेलो? हेलो? रहोगे आप 12 क्लास में है, क्लास को अटेंड करो और थोड़ा सा कम से कम कैजुअली नहीं लेना है. ये तो कोरोना तो हम लोग का पीछे से नहीं हटेगा. अगर साल भर ऐसा ही चलेगा तो आपको भी लगता है आप सोचते हैं मेरा पास गूगल है तो गूगल से हम क्लिक कर देंगे सब कुछ आ जाएगा, ऐसा नहीं है। नेचुरली टीचर का भी बात सुनना पड़ेगा आपको। टीचर्स को ये चीज पता है हुई चीज इंपॉर्टेंट इन दिस चैप्टर, बट गूगल को ये चीज पता नहीं है, ठीक है ना। इसीलिए टीचर्स का बात, कितना क्वेश्चन, जैसे मान लीजिए 10% लॉ ऑफ इस चैप्टर से 10% लॉ ऑफ एनर्जी ट्रांसफर, फूड चेन, फूड वेब, डेट्रिटस फूड चेन, उसके बाद आपका ये जो है इकोलॉजिकल पिरामिड इज जनरली इन्वर्टेड। ये क्वेश्चन तो बहुत बार आया है। जस्टिफाई द स्टेटमेंट इकोलॉजिकल पिरामिड इन ए सी इज जनरली इन्वर्टेड, जस्टिफाई। 2 मार्क्स का क्वेश्चन हमेशा देता है। इसके बाद आपका इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन, इसमें डिस्कस होगा इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन। इकोलॉजिकल सक्सेशन generally the sequential, gradual and predictable changes in the species composition. The sequential, gradual and predictable changes in the species composition in an area are called ecological succession. The sequential, gradual and predictable changes in the species composition in an area are called ecological succession. Ecological succession means किसी एक particular area once upon a time it was totally barren, उसमें कोई vegetation नहीं था, but in due course of time धीरे धीरे क्या होगा, उसमें vegetation आ जाता है. It will take so much time, that means either 1000 year 100 year, धीरे धीरे वहाँ grasses होगा, उसके बाद bryophyte, एडोफाइट्स, धीरे धीरे climax vegetation शुरू हो. Once upon a time, it was barren land, but due to humidification and other weathering of rocks, etc., that is nutrient availability at that area maximum as a result of the small plant as well as the grasses, then bryophyte, dendrophyte, then gymnosperm, then climax forest. And this sequential gradual formation of the forest is known as ecological succession. The entire sequence of the communities that successively change in a particular area, the entire sequence of the communities that changes in a given area is called series, SERE, series. Okay, जो स्टेप होता है, एक एक स्टेप को हम लोग सीरी बोलते हैं, ठीक है. And the individual transitional communities are termed as serial stage or serial communities. The individual transitional communities are termed as serial stage or serial communities. The community that near equilibrium with the environment is called the climax community. The final stage of this succession is called the climax community. और जो पहले सबसे इनिशियल स्टेज में जो वेजिटेशन होता है, this is known as the pioneer species. Okay, pioneer species. So succession 2 types, ecological succession 2 types. एक होता है प्राइमरी सक्सेशन और सेकंड होता है सेकेंडरी सक्सेशन. प्राइमरी सक्सेशन में क्या है, पहले से कोई वेजिटेशन, नो सच टाइप ऑफ द वेजिटेशन अर्लियर फाउंड इन दैट पर्टिकुलर एरिया, इन ड्यू कोर्स धीरे धीरे स्लोली डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द स्पीसीज ड्यू टू weathering of rocks, due to humidification, etc. That is first of all lichen, then bryophyte, then pteridophyte, then gymnosperm, then angiosperm. This is called the primary succession. It will take more time. No type of barren land भी हो सकता है, water bodies में भी हो सकता है, इसमें vegetation धीरे धीरे शुरू होता है. This is called the primary succession. Secondary succession में क्या होता है, just opposite. That means any area, it was previously occupied by vegetation, but by means of the natural calamity means मान लीजिए सुनामी हो गया, थंडरस्टॉर्म हो गया, फ्लड हो गया, पूरा वेजिटेशन डैमेज हो गया, डिस्ट्रक्टेड हो. बट धीरे धीरे within 100 years it come back to the original climax community. So this is called the secondary succession. Again, primary succession means no such type of vegetation. Earlier it was present in that particular area, either rock surface or the that means desert areas or the water bodies. but slowly some vegetation occurs, and then lichens, then bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperm, then finally angiosperm are developed. Okay, and is reached to climax vegetation. But in case of the secondary succession, में क्या होता है ना, it was occupied by vegetation earlier, but due to natural calamities, जैसे मान लीजिए tsunami, thunderstorm, as well as the earthquake, etc., all the vegetation buried underground, and after that new vegetation developed. This is known as the secondary succession. So these are the differences between primary succession and secondary succession. These are the differences between primary succession and secondary succession. Now you will remember that in case of the primary succession, near about 1,000 of years it will require for the primary succession from pioneer to climax vegetation. But in case of the secondary succession, it will require 100 years. बहुत short period में ये vegetation होता है. 100 years from pioneer vegetation to the climax vegetation. Okay, so as you know, that means these two types of the succession you have to study. Now, as per your syllabus, you have to study regarding Hydra's succession. Hydra's succession, another that is Gerard's succession. Hydra's means that aquatic body में कैसे धीरे धीरे vegetation developed होता है, ultimately forest में developed हो जाता है. This is called the Hydra's. और Gerard's succession means desert area, जहाँ कोई vegetation नहीं है, बालू है, उस area में प्राइमरी वेजिटेशन कब से शुरू हुआ, धीरे धीरे क्लाइमेक्स वेजिटेशन शुरू होता है, तो जनरली इसको बोलते हैं जेरार्च वेजिटेशन, ये जेरार्च सक्सेशन. एज पर प्राइमरी सक्सेशन इन वाटर, प्राइमरी सक्सेशन दैट मींस हाइड्रा सक्सेशन, व्हाट आर द स्टेप्स इन्वॉल्व, वो क्लास में मैंने डिस्कस भी किया था इसका प्राइमरी सक्सेशन कैसे होता है. द पायोनियर स्पीसीज इज फाइटोप्लैंक्टन. वाटर बॉडी में जो सक्सेशन होता है दैट मींस धीरे धीरे द प्लांट ग्रोथ होता है. द पायनियर स्पीसीज इज फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स. पायनियर स्पीसीज फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स. सेकंड स्टेप में द फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स आर रिप्लेस्ड बाय फ्री फ्लोटिंग एंजियोस्पर्म. फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स रिप्लेस्ड बाय फ्री फ्लोटिंग एंजियोस्पर्म, एंड देन rooted angiosperm invade the sedges, grasses, and finally the trees. At last, stable climax community or vegetation develop. In aquatic habitat, it is converted into massive habitat. धीरे धीरे क्या हो जाएगा, वो जो पहले तो फ्री फ्लोटिंग प्लांट फाइटोप्लैंक्टन होता है, फाइटोप्लैंक्टन रिप्लेस होता है, उसमें से फ्री फ्लोटिंग प्लांट से, फ्री फ्लोटिंग से वो भी रिप्लेस हो जाता है जो रूटेड एंजियोस्पर्म से. रूटेड एंजियोस्पर्म फाइनली लास्ट में क्या हो जाता है, वो रिप्लेस हो जाता है क्लाइमेक्स वेजिटेशन. तो क्लाइमेक्स वेजिटेशन में क्या होता है ना, बहुत सारा एक्वाटिक प्लांट जो रूटेड होता है वो किसको धीरे धीरे वो एरिया को वाटर लॉगिंग एरिया से धीरे धीरे वो फ्रॉम एक्वाटिक एरिया टू मैसिक एरिया में कन्वर्ट हो जाता है. हम लोग देखते हैं एक समय जो एरिया पॉन्ड था और एक्वाटिक बॉडी था, आज वो एक्वाटिक बॉडी नहीं है. आपका अगर एज अगर 20 साल हो गई, 15 साल 17 साल हो गया, पहले बचपन में जो देखते थे जो दिस एरिया एक्वाटिक बॉडी था, आज वो एक्वाटिक बॉडी नहीं है. वो एक्वाटिक बॉडी कन्वर्टेड इनटू प्लेन लैंड और मैसिक एरिया हो गया. ठीक है, मैसिक एरिया वेजिटेशन उसमें पाया जाता है. वो पहले एक बहुत ओल्ड पीपल अगर घर में है वो बोलते थे उस एरिया में एक तालाब था, लेकिन आज वो तालाब नहीं है, वो वहाँ दैट मीन्स एक क्लाइमेक्स वेजिटेशन हो गया, वहाँ एक कॉम्प्लेक्स वेजिटेशन बन गया वहाँ. सो कैसे हो गया, दिस आर द स्टेप्स इन्वॉल्व इन द पर्टिकुलर एरिया, पर्टिकुलर इन द हाइडर्स एक्वाटिक बॉडी में कैसे आपका ये होता है. जनरली क्लाइमेक्स वेजिटेशन होता है. नेक्स्ट वन, प्राइमरी सक्सेशन इन रॉक सरफेस. रॉक सरफेस में क्या होता है, व्हाट आर द दैट मीन्स रॉक सरफेस में क्या होता है. लिचेंस आर द पायोनियर. किसी पर्टिकुलर रॉक सरफेस में हम लोग सोचते हैं कि रॉक सरफेस में पेड़ पौधा कैसे हो जाएगा. दैट मीन्स हाउ द प्लांट्स आर डेवलप्ड ऑन द रॉक सरफेस. क्यों ना हम लोग जानते हैं रॉक्स, वेदरिंग ऑफ रॉक्स होता है, लीचिंग ऑफ द रॉक्स होता है, और रॉक्स में क्या था, मिनरलाइजेशन होता है और ह्यूमिफिकेशन होता है। ह्यूमिफिकेशन में क्या होता है ना, उसमें कुछ न्यूट्रिएंट उसमें गैदर्ड होता है, और न्यूट्रिएंट होने पर गैदर्ड उसमें क्या होता है ना, लीचेंस उसमें बनता है, लीचेंस उसमें बनता है। द लीचेन secretes some acid to dissolve the rock and helping the weathering and soil formation. Later, some small bryophytes invades. उसके बाद क्या होता है, लीचेंस का बाद small bryophytes developed होता है. The bryophytes are succeeded by herbs, shrubs, and ultimately big trees. The bryophytes are succeeded by herbs, shrubs, and ultimately big trees. At last, a stable forest community is developed. Stable forest community is developed. The xerophytic habitat gets converted into mesophytic zone. Okay. So पहले क्या होता है ना, रॉक सरफेस में रॉक्स का होता है, रॉक सरफेस में रॉक में वेदरिंग ऑफ रॉक्स होता है बहुत दिनों से। धीरे धीरे क्या होता है, उसमें वेदरिंग होता है, सॉइल फॉर्मेशन होता है, उसमें लीचन पहले होगा, लीचन जब डेथ हो जाएगा उसमें ह्यूमिफिकेशन होगा, ह्यूमिफिकेशन के बाद उसमें ब्रायोफाइट्स डेवलप्ड होगा, ब्रायोफाइट्स के बाद उसमें स्मॉल प्लांट का डेवलप्ड होता है। एज फॉर एग्जांपल जो हिल में पाया जाता है रोडोडेंड्रन, एक प्लांट है जो हिली एरिया में बहुत पाया जाता है, दिस आर द स्मॉल प्लांट। द ब्रायोफाइट्स आर सक्सीडेड बाय herbs, shrubs, and ultimately big trees. Okay. At last, the climax forest is developed. The xerophytic habit get converted into mesophytic habit. बहुत सारा लोग बोलते हैं जो इस एरिया में पहले रॉक्स था, पत्थर की चट्टान ये था, धीरे धीरे उस एरिया वेजिटेशन होके उसमें फाइनली फॉरेस्ट में कन्वर्ट हो गया। दैट मीन्स ये टू टाइप्स ऑफ सक्सेशन, वन इज द जेरिक सक्सेशन जिसको बोलते हैं द जेरार्च, और आरेक होता है हाइड्रार्च सक्सेशन जिसमें एक्वाटिक बॉडी में धीरे धीरे प्लांट बॉडी बनता है। These are the steps involved in which way climax vegetation takes place. So two types of succession as per your syllabus, that is hydra succession and Gerard succession, you have to study. Now generally succession two types hota hai, primary succession or secondary succession. Primary succession it will take more time, near about 1000 of years, and secondary succession it will take 100 years near about. So these are the differences between primary succession. Another main difference is primary succession is a very slow process where totally bare area or totally no type of the vegetation occupied in that particular area, and finally it is converted into climax forest. Okay, next nutrient cycle. We have to study in this chapter nutrient cycle. Nutrient cycle, biogeochemical cycle. First of all, we have to study biogeochemical cycle. Tomorrow I will discuss about in details regarding the biogeochemical cycle. The cyclic pathway of some key element like carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, nitrogen through the physical and biological world known as biogeochemical cycle. Okay, biogeochemical cycle, the cyclic pathway of the key element like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, etc. So the physical and biological world is known as biogeochemical cycle. So tomorrow I will discuss about it, that is gaseous cycle, nitrogenous cycle, phosphorus cycle, as well as some other cycle, sedimentary cycle we have to discuss tomorrow, nutrient cycle, etc. Tomorrow is nutrient cycle discuss किया जाए. Hello.
Yes sir.
Hello.
Yes sir.
Tomorrow discuss. आज students तो इसमें tomorrow nutrient cycle. अच्छा, इस chapter के बाद जो इकोसिस्टम है, इकोलॉजिकल जो सिस्टम है, इसके बाद एक पॉपुलेशन एंड ऑर्गेनिज्म, ये चैप्टर है। ऑर्गेनिज्म ये माने लास्ट, इकोसिस्टम का चैप्टर के बाद फिर से बायोटेक्नोलॉजी शुरू करेंगे। बायोटेक्नोलॉजी चैप्टर से शुरू होगा पहले से। ये थोड़ा सा डिस्कशन उतना अच्छा से नहीं हुआ था, तो ठीक है, उसके बाद ही बायोटेक्नोलॉजी चैप्टर आपका टर्म 2 सिलेबस में है।
Okay.
तो उससे हाँ, ओके, ठीक। नेक्स्ट टुडे कंक्लूड